Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every life when you realize that surviving is not the same as living. You can have success and still feel empty. You can be busy and still be going nowhere. This is because life outside of divine order is like a ship drifting without a compass. It moves but never arrives. I want to reveal to you something more powerful than motivation, more enduring than ambition, and more secure than tradition. I'm talking about the unshakable principles of the kingdom, laws that have been in place before time began, designed to govern life on earth with the stability of heaven itself. And if you hear these words and truly grasp them, you will never be the same again. This is not just about inspiration, this is about reprogramming your entire operating system. Stay with me, because by the time we're done, you will not only see life differently, you will live differently. The kingdom is not a religion, it is a government, an unshakable realm ruled by laws, principles, and order. Religion tells you to wait for heaven. The kingdom empowers you to bring heaven into your now. Every successful nation on earth is built on systems, not feelings. The kingdom is the ultimate system. And when you understand it, you stop chasing blessings and start living in alignment with the king. Principles are predictable. They don't change based on your emotions, your background, or your circumstances. Just as the law of gravity works for anyone, so do the laws of the kingdom. When you apply them, you get results. Not because of chance, but because of design. You were born with an assignment. That assignment is hidden in the way you were made, your skills, your desires, your passions. The kingdom principles reveal how to unlock that design and live in your calling. And here's the truth. When you step into your assignment, provision follows. In the kingdom, resources are not chased, they are attracted. Alignment brings abundance. But here's the warning. You cannot violate kingdom principles and expect kingdom benefits. If you live outside of these laws, life becomes a cycle of frustration and loss. The kingdom operates with order. Honor brings access. Obedience brings authority. And faith activates power. The kingdom is not an abstract religious concept confined to sacred spaces or ceremonial rituals. It is a living, active government, a divine administration with laws, principles, and systems that govern life on earth just as surely as they govern life in heaven. When most people think of kingdom, they imagine a distant realm, something to be inherited in the afterlife. But the truth is, the kingdom is here now, operating with precision and order, waiting for those who understand its principles to live by them. And here lies the first great transformation, the realization that you are not merely part of a religion, but a citizen of a kingdom, a functioning system designed to bring the culture of heaven into your everyday reality. In this system, blessings are not random events, but predictable outcomes of alignment. The kingdom is structured in such a way that when you apply its laws, your life begins to mirror the stability and abundance of the King himself. Unlike religious systems, which often depend on traditions, ceremonies, and emotional highs, the kingdom operates on unchanging truth. Just as the natural world has laws, gravity, seed time and harvest, cause and effect, the kingdom has spiritual laws that govern prosperity, peace, healing, authority, and purpose. Gravity doesn't work for some people and fail for others. It works for all because it is a law. In the same way, the principles of the kingdom work for anyone who applies them, regardless of background, nationality, or social status. This is the beauty and power of the kingdom. It is not based on favoritism, but on function. If you learn the law, and obey it, the results will follow. This is where many miss it. People pray for change but ignore the laws that create change. They hope for abundance but violate the principle of giving. They desire peace but live in ways that break the law of alignment with God's order. You cannot expect kingdom results while operating by the world's system. In the world's system, success is often achieved through competition, manipulation, and striving. In the kingdom, success is a product of understanding the king's will, aligning with his order, and operating under his authority. Think of it this way. In any nation, if you live according to its laws, you enjoy its benefits and protections. If you break those laws, you lose privileges and suffer consequences, no matter how sincere your intentions may be. The kingdom is no different. It has a constitution, the Word of God, and it has clear principles for living. These principles are not meant to restrict you, but to release you into a life of freedom, security, and purpose. The problem is that too many people live as though the kingdom is only a future hope rather than a present reality. But once you recognize that the kingdom is here, you will stop waiting for heaven to come and start living heaven's life right now. When you begin to operate in kingdom principles, life stops being a guessing game. You no longer wonder why some things work for others but not for you. You stop living in cycles of frustration and start experiencing a flow of peace and provision. This is because the kingdom system is self-sustaining. It carries its own economy, its own health care, its own justice, and its own education, all rooted in divine wisdom. If you abide in it, you cannot be overtaken by the instability of the world around you. Markets may crash, governments may fall, cultures may shift, but the kingdom remains unshaken because it is built on eternal foundation. The most life-changing shift you can make is to stop thinking of yourself as a religious participant and start seeing yourself as a kingdom citizen. A citizen knows their rights, understands their responsibilities, and lives with confidence in their government's protection. In the same way, when you embrace the kingdom's reality, you begin to live with the assurance that the king's resources are yours, his authority is behind you, and his laws are working for your good. This is not just theology. It is practical life strategy. The kingdom system works, but only for those who understand it and live by it. And when you do, it will change your life forever. Principles are the anchors that hold life steady when emotions, circumstances, and opinions shift like waves. They are unchanging truths established long before you arrived and enduring long after you are gone. Emotions are temporary. They rise and fall like the tide, swayed by events, moods, and perceptions. One day you feel confident, the next you feel inadequate. One moment you are motivated, the next you are weary. But principles stand apart from that volatility. They are fixed points of reference, constants that remain unmoved by the storms of life. In the kingdom, living by principles rather than feelings is the difference between stability and collapse. Feelings can tell you to quit, but principles will command you to persevere. Feelings may urge you to compromise, but principles will anchor you in integrity. The power of principles lies in their predictability. Just as gravity will never stop pulling objects downward, kingdom principles will never stop producing their intended results. The law of sowing and reaping will always hold true. Whatever you plant, you will harvest. You cannot sow dishonesty and expect trust. You cannot sow selfishness and expect love. The law is impartial. It does not bend for your tears or for your urgency. If you work it, it works for you. If you violate it, it works against you. This is why living by principles is so liberating. You no longer depend on luck, chance, or the unpredictable approval of others. You simply align yourself with eternal laws, and the outcomes follow as surely as the sunrise follows the night. When people live by feelings, their lives become erratic. They make commitments when they are inspired, but abandon them when enthusiasm fades. They start projects in excitement, but quit when they encounter obstacles. They treat people with kindness when they feel like it, but withhold love when they are hurt. This inconsistency erodes trust, damages relationships, and limits success. In contrast, those who live by principles are steady. They keep their word even when it costs them. They maintain discipline when no one is watching. They love when it is inconvenient. Their lives become dependable, and that dependability attracts opportunities, respect, and influence. Principles also protect you from manipulation. When you are ruled by feelings, anyone who can influence your emotions can control your decisions. A manipulator only needs to make you angry, afraid, or excited to steer you toward their agenda. But when you are anchored in principles, you are not swayed by every emotional gust. You evaluate decisions through the lens of truth, not the haze of temporary emotion. This is why leaders in the kingdom must be principle-driven. Emotions make you reactive. Principles make you proactive. It is also important to understand that principles outlast seasons. A good season may bring ease, but it does not eliminate the need for discipline. A hard season may bring pain, but it does not permit the abandonment of integrity. The principle of honoring God, for example, is as relevant in times of abundance as it is in times of lack. The principle of forgiveness applies whether the offense is small or unbearable. The principle of diligence matters whether you are celebrated or overlooked. Seasons change. Principles do not. Finally, living by principles is the true foundation of freedom. Many think freedom means doing whatever you feel, but that is simply slavery to emotion. Real freedom is the ability to choose what is right regardless of what you feel. This is what gives you control over your destiny. The knowledge that no matter how unpredictable life becomes, you are guided by unshakable truths that lead to unshakable results. When you embrace the fact that principles outlive emotions, you stop building your life on sand and start building on rock. And when the storms come, and they will, you will stand unmoved because you are anchored to what will never change. Your assignment is not something you have to invent. It is something you must discover. Before you ever took your first breath, the Creator designed you with intention. Every fiber of your being, every skill you possess, every passion that burns within you was carefully placed to serve a unique purpose on this earth. You were not born by accident, nor are you here to merely exist. The truth is, your assignment, the very reason for your existence, is hidden within your design. This means that the way you are wired is the greatest clue to the life you are meant to live. If you have ever wondered why certain things stir your heart while others leave you unmoved, it is because deep within you lies a divine blueprint, and it is calling you to fulfillment. When you understand that your assignment is encoded in who you are, you stop comparing yourself to others. No two designs are identical, and no two purposes are the same. The frustration many feel in life often comes from trying to fit into someone else's mold, chasing careers, lifestyles, or callings that were never meant for them. You cannot fulfill your destiny living another person's dream. The gifts, talents, and even personality traits you have are not random. They are strategic. The Creator does not waste details. The things you do naturally, without struggle, often point to the work you were designed to accomplish. The kingdom operates on the principle that design determines function. In the natural world, you can see it everywhere. A bird is designed with wings because it was made to fly. A fish is designed with gills because it was made to live in water. When you understand this, you see that your own design is a clear indicator of your role. If you try to operate outside of your design, you will struggle and fail to thrive, not because you lack value, but because you are functioning in the wrong environment or assignment. The kingdom's principles free you from that struggle by showing you where you truly belong. Your assignment is not just about what you do, it is about who you serve and the problem you are meant to solve. Every design is connected to a need in the world. The things you are passionate about fixing or improving often point to the very arena you are created to impact. This is why ignoring your design leads to a sense of emptiness, even if you achieve worldly success. Success without purpose is just movement without meaning. You can accumulate wealth, fame, and recognition, but if it does not align with your assignment, it will still leave you unfulfilled. In the kingdom, purpose and provision are inseparable. When you step into your assignment, resources begin to flow. Opportunities, relationships, and even finances align themselves with the fulfillment of your calling. This is not magic, it is a principle. The king always funds his own projects, and if you are operating in your true assignment, you are one of them. On the other hand, when you work outside your design, you constantly have to strive, manipulate, or force outcomes because you are trying to sustain something that heaven has not endorsed. Discovering your assignment requires self-awareness and submission to the one who designed you. It means listening to the deep stirrings in your spirit, paying attention to the patterns of grace in your life, and being willing to walk away from paths that do not align with your purpose. It may require courage to leave behind what is familiar, but it will always lead to a life of greater fulfillment and effectiveness. When you live in the center of your assignment, work becomes a joy, challenges become opportunities for growth, and every day carries a sense of meaning. When you embrace the truth that your assignment is hidden in your design, you stop chasing life and start living it. You realize that everything you need to fulfill your calling has already been placed within you, not to serve your own ambitions, but to serve the greater good of the kingdom. And when you live in alignment with that design, you will find not only your purpose, but also your provision, your peace, and your power. In the kingdom, provision is never an accident. It follows alignment the way a shadow follows the body. This means that when you position your life under the order of the king, every resource required for your assignment will come, not through striving, manipulation, or anxious pursuit, but as a natural consequence of living in divine alignment. The modern world has conditioned people to chase provision, to spend their lives pursuing money, status, and connections as if these are the source of stability. But in the kingdom, provision is not the source, it is the evidence. It is the sign that you are walking in step with your purpose and under the authority of God's order. When you are where you are supposed to be, doing what you are supposed to do, what you need will find you. This is not to say that kingdom living removes the need for work or diligence. On the contrary, alignment requires discipline, consistency, and obedience. But the work of the kingdom is different from the striving of the world. In the world, you push doors open by force. In the kingdom, doors open because you carry the right key. That key is alignment. Living in such agreement with God's principles that the environment around you begins to respond to your obedience. You don't have to convince provision to follow you any more than you have to convince a seed to grow. All you do is place it in the right soil, and the growth is inevitable. The challenge is that many people are out of position. They are operating in careers, relationships, and pursuits that may bring temporary gain, but are disconnected from their true assignment. This misalignment creates a constant need to chase after provision because they are working outside the flow of God's supply. It's like trying to row against a strong current, exhausting, draining, and often fruitless. But when you are aligned, you're not rowing against the current, you are carried by it. The opportunities that come to you are not forced, they are attracted. The right people show up, the right doors open, and the right resources appear at the right time, because the King provides for what he has ordained. It's also important to understand that kingdom provision is not limited to money. It includes wisdom, favor, influence, protection, and strength, all of which are necessary to fulfill your purpose. Many reduce provision to finances, but some of the greatest provisions God gives are relationships that open doors, ideas that solve problems, and opportunities that position you for influence. When you are aligned with his order, you begin to see that every encounter, every skill, and every piece of knowledge you receive is part of his provision for your assignment. Alignment also creates sustainability. In the world system, you may gain wealth through ambition, but without alignment, that wealth can become a burden or vanish in an instant. Kingdom provision, however, is sustained because it is rooted in eternal principles. It is not dependent on market conditions, political stability, or human approval. Even in seasons of famine, those who are aligned with the kingdom's order can flourish because their source is not the economy, it is the King. But alignment is a choice. It requires listening to God's direction and being willing to obey even when the path is uncomfortable or unfamiliar. It means rejecting shortcuts that violate kingdom principles and refusing to compromise for temporary gain. This can be difficult, especially when provision seems scarce. Yet the moment you step out of alignment to grasp what you think you need, you step away from the very flow that was designed to supply you. True faith is trusting that as long as you remain where the King has placed you, what you need will never be withheld. When you embrace the reality that provision follows alignment, you stop living like a beggar and start living like a citizen. You realize that the King's responsibility is to take care of his own, and your responsibility is to remain in position. This truth will free you from anxiety, drive away the fear of lack, and release you into a life of purpose and peace. In the kingdom, you don't chase provision, you chase alignment, and provision chases you. The kingdom operates on laws, not luck. This is one of the most liberating truths you can ever grasp because it removes the uncertainty that so many people live under. In the world, success is often seen as the product of chance, being in the right place at the right time, knowing the right people, or simply having good fortune. But in the kingdom, outcomes are not left to random events. They are the direct result of principles that are as fixed and dependable as the natural laws that govern the universe. Just as the law of gravity works for anyone who steps off a ledge, kingdom laws work for anyone who applies them. Regardless of their past, background, or position, this means your life is not at the mercy of luck, and you are not dependent on the unpredictable favor of others. You can create predictable results by living in harmony with the unchanging principles established by God. Laws are consistent, impartial, and unbending. They do not take into account your feelings, your excuses, or your circumstances. They simply produce according to their design. The law of sowing and reaping, for example, will always deliver a harvest that matches the seed you have planted. You cannot sow bitterness and expect peace, just as you cannot sow greed and expect generosity to return to you. When you understand this, life becomes less about wishing for good outcomes and more about deliberately planting the right seeds. The kingdom system rewards those who obey its laws, not those who merely hope for blessings. This is why the mindset of waiting to get lucky has no place in the kingdom. Waiting for things to just happen keeps you passive and powerless, while the laws of the kingdom invite you to be intentional and active. They empower you to take control of your destiny by aligning your actions with divine order. It is not about manipulating outcomes, but about cooperating with a system that has been in place since the beginning of time. Once you align with those laws, results become inevitable. You no longer wonder if your efforts will work. You know they will because the law guarantees it. It's also critical to understand that the kingdom's laws are not subject to human opinion or cultural trends. Society's definitions of success, morality, and worth may shift from decade to decade, but the laws of the kingdom remain unchanged. They are eternal because they are rooted in the character of the king himself. This means that no matter where you live, what the economy looks like, or who holds political power, the principles you live by will continue to work. You are no longer bound by the instability of the world's systems because you are operating under a higher, unshakable law. However, these laws must be learned and applied. Ignorance of the law does not exempt you from its consequences. Just as someone who does not understand gravity will still fall if they step off a height, someone who ignores the laws of the kingdom will still suffer the effects of that violation. This is why wisdom is so vital. The more you study the principles of the kingdom, the more skillfully you can apply them, and the more consistent your results will become. When you embrace the reality that the kingdom is governed by laws and not by luck, your life shifts from uncertainty to assurance. You stop gambling with your future and start building it with precision. You no longer envy those who seem fortunate because you understand that favor is a product of alignment, not chance. Every step you take in obedience to the laws of the kingdom brings you closer to the life you were created to live. And the most powerful part is this: these laws work for anyone, anywhere, at any time. If you apply them, they will change your life, not because you got lucky, but because you tapped into a system that cannot fail. In the kingdom, access is not determined by talent alone, nor is it secured by connections, wealth, or social position. Access is determined by honor. Honor is the currency that unlocks relationships, opportunities, and authority. It is the posture of recognizing value in people, positions, and principles, and treating them accordingly. In a world where disrespect has become casual and entitlement is common, the kingdom calls its citizens to live by a higher standard, one that esteems others and acknowledges the order established by God. Honor is not flattery. It is not about empty words or outward gestures. True honor flows from the heart and is expressed through consistent action. It is a deliberate choice to see people through the lens of their God-given worth, not just their current circumstances. When you live in honor, doors open that skill alone could never unlock. Skills may get you noticed, but honor will keep you in the room. Talent can open a momentary opportunity, but honor builds lasting trust. This is why in the kingdom, dishonor is so costly. It not only damages relationships, but also shuts you out of environments where your destiny is meant to unfold. People often underestimate how many blessings they forfeit because they fail to honor those whom God has placed in their lives as mentors, leaders, or partners in their journey. Honor is not limited to how you treat people you admire or agree with. It is revealed in how you treat those who cannot repay you, those who may not share your views, and even those who have wronged you. The kingdom's standard for honor is not based on the worthiness of the other person's behavior, but on your commitment to uphold the principle itself. You honor because it's right, not because it's convenient. This principle protects your character, shapes your influence, and positions you to receive from people and places you might otherwise overlook. There is also a direct connection between honor and authority. In the kingdom, you cannot exercise authority in areas where you have not first demonstrated honor. A soldier who disrespects his commanding officer will find himself stripped of rank. In the same way, a believer who dishonors God's order will find their spiritual authority weakened. Honor keeps you under covering, and that covering is what empowers you to function effectively in your assignment. Without it, you may find yourself striving in your own strength rather than operating in the delegated authority of the kingdom. Honor also safeguards unity. In families, churches, workplaces, and communities, dishonor breeds division, while honor cultivates trust and cooperation. It allows people to work together despite differences because they recognize the value of the relationship over the urgency of personal preference. In the kingdom, unity is not the absence of conflict, it is the presence of mutual respect. Honor makes that possible because it elevates the principle of relationship above the impulse of pride. Many people desire promotion, but they overlook the fact that in the kingdom, promotion comes through honor. This is a law as real as gravity. When you honor those above you, you are positioned to be lifted higher. When you dishonor them, you invite resistance into your own progress. This is why Scripture says, honor your father and mother, that it may go well with you, and you may live long on the earth. Honor lengthens not just your days, but the quality of those days, because it keeps you in the flow of God's order and blessing. When you understand that honor brings access, you stop treating it as an optional virtue and start seeing it as a strategic necessity. Every relationship, every opportunity, every level of authority you will ever step into is connected to how you handle honor. In the kingdom, you do not demand access, you earn it through the consistent practice of esteeming others according to their God-given value. And when you live this way, you will find that doors you never thought possible will open to you, not because you forced them, but because honor unlocked them. Your life does not change by chance, it changes by choice. And the choice you make today is whether you will continue drifting through life on the waves of uncertainty or anchor yourself to the principles that cannot be shaken. The kingdom is here now waiting for you to step in. The moment you align with it, everything changes. Not because your circumstances are different, but because you are different. And when you are different, the world around you cannot remain the same.